This episode is for Friday, August 26th, 2016. Welcome, Creator fans. I'm your host, Josh Owens, along with my co-host,
Hobby Iyer.
my bearded co-host. Your beard's
I
coming out.
know. Growing the beard out.
Nice.
Looking fresh, man.
Desk is a little high. There we go. So, yes, it was a very interesting week in Creator Land. So
Good week.
we're going to talk about the new version of Creator. We're going to talk about the state of JavaScript. We're going to talk about a new React Native tutorial / book. And then we're going to have a discussion on, is it time to fork Meteor? I don't know. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, so the first one, and I've got a blog that's going to accompany this as soon as I get finished writing it. But yeah, no, like I've been super stressed about Creator as of late, as of probably the last 4 or 5 months. It's been feeling slower and slower. I've been having trouble with pre-render, like my install pre-render working properly, which has led to Google getting errors, and so the Google traffic's been dying off and whatnot. And so like these are problems I needed to fix. And I also felt like it didn't really fit with the Space Dojo branding either. And so like I didn't have the time, and like I'm not a designer, to like really work on this. And I ended up talking to Sasha, and like he really wanted to get someone on the newer version of Telescope using React. And so he ended up putting together a design probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And, I've been working on getting it ready, like testing it, tweaking it, making sure it looked right with, the production data. Ended up putting it up on a staging server that used the same production database, and then put that server into the mix for some people to use. So for like a week, like Abby and I have been using the new version
Yeah.
prior to it launching. And I probably had like 10 or 12 people that were kind of using it and giving me feedback. And it was good. Like we got some good feedback. Like Sasha and I ended up swapping the fonts so the main font's more legible. Like the font that you see up by the logo, that was the font that was everywhere. And a system font for headlines is kind of bad, it turned out.
Yeah.
A little hard to read. So yeah, like it felt good to get it out there. And like it's amazing the amount of speed. So the major piece that changed is that the entire front end is in React instead of Blaze. I'm pretty sure under the covers it's maybe using create container. So still using tracker and whatnot.
Yeah.
Still using mini Mongo, PubSub, but the big piece is going to be React. And I was thinking about it today. I want to go through and look at the Nova stuff and see, like, did the optimistic UI stuff change or did that stay the same? Because I have a feeling like maybe that changed a little bit, and maybe that's where some of the speed's coming from.
Yeah.
Now when you upvote, like it's just like boom, done, whereas before it would like sit and chug and chug and chug, and then the upvote would happen. And same thing, like clicking in to look at comments, like that would take forever, and
Yeah.
anymore. And I also like Sasha worked hard to get server-side rendering to work. So he's got,
He went through a lot of hoops for that one.
yeah, he got fast render working. Like fast render has been working for a while, but he got it working with React and React Router and the React Router SSR package that's out there. And that took a little fiddling as well because there were some bugs in fast render. And there's even been a fix lately. So like DDP batching broke fast render. And so I don't like, have we talked about DDP batching? I think we have.
Yeah. A couple.
For those that aren't familiar, the idea is like, if you come to the page and you load like 100 things onto the page, DDP would process each of those 100 items as they were coming in and like react to each one. And DDP batching kind of gives you this little 500 millisecond delay, or it's configurable, but it'll like wait, and then it'll run like from the time it hits the first piece of DDP data coming in to it hits the time limit, then it'll batch out those changes. And so you're not rerunning the code all the time. And so
Yeah.
DDP batching is actually turned off right now. And I have a feeling if I go back and put in this new version of fast render and turn DDP batching back on, like we may even see slightly speedier performance on it, which I mean might be negligible at this point with how fast it
Yeah.
feels.
Yeah. It's definitely night and day, man. Like, seriously. Like, I mean, aside from the theme, which is very, like, you know, in line with the Space Dojo theme, that's already a plus. And then the speed, where so many people were commenting already saying, like, talking about the old days in Crater, like it was a couple, just a couple days ago was the old version.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited. Like, it's funny how things can change when you just change the technology, right?
Yeah. Just a
Especially
little bit,
technology
right?
that's actively developed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's like Facebook cares about performance. And that's not to say like MDG didn't care about performance, but MDG cared about like a whole bunch of other things inside of the Meteor framework. And this is kind of like playing into my recent thoughts on frameworks versus libraries, and like why libraries make a lot more sense, because you can have a small focused team that's like quickly iterating and fixing problems, and like they're just kind of focused on that one thing, and
Yeah.
that's why I think it's like super interesting. GraphQL looks interesting, and React looks interesting, and these kinds of things, or even Vue looks interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that stuff works well because you have a smaller focused team that cares about like one particular problem or two or three
Yeah.
particular problems that
Yeah.
relate to that, kind of front end piece here. And the other nice thing that I gained because of this is because we don't need pre-render anymore, because we have fast render and SSR, like we're
Yep.
able to serve up proper HTML to the Google bots and whatnot, all the spiders, and we're not dealing with the performance issues we had before
Yep.
with Spiderable or pre-render, and we're getting like actual, like you can actually see, like I've got Google Webmaster installed, which by the way, if you're running a site and you don't have Google Webmaster installed, like you should go do that now. But
Definitely.
like you can see this error chart where it was like 1,000 to 2,000 errors a day to Google, and then just a straight drop down to zero.
Yeah.
And Google's getting 100% like served up responses now, and I have a feeling like the speed increase and the lack of errors like should hopefully help, propel the site back to a good page rank everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit. And then I turned on page caching as well. So if you're not logged in, you're going to be served up a cached version of HTML based on the SSR. And it's actually really neat to see. So if you go and the cache is slightly old and you're not logged in, like you'll get that cached version and there's a new post or something, or the upvote numbers change, like you can load the page and then DDP kicks in and like the page updates as well. And it's
Yeah.
actually see that happen.
Yeah. I think I owe most of this like speed increase definitely to server-side rendering. Because I think there's a misconception about server-side rendering where it's only for that page load time, and of course it is. But as you said, like it affects a lot more pieces of your business, like your quality score. When you have search engine marketing,
Mm-hmm.
if Google can see that page faster, they're going to rank you a lot higher in terms of quality of website.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for like a consumer business? That means that more people are going to land on your website because Google ranks you a lot higher. So if you're doing a lot of search engine marketing, that means you can push a lot more people to your website. And if the perceived performance of loading that page is also higher for the user, it's a double win because they're going to like your product a lot more. So I definitely think that server-side rendering in any library, if you're doing like any HTML rendering type library, needs to focus on server-side rendering. And the crazy thing is most are by default now, like every new library in the last couple of months, including React, has had a very good focus on server-side rendering and an ability to do so. So that's just great to see. Like 2 years ago, you would have to do that as a separate part of the library's experience, you know.
Yeah.
And now it's just a part of, like, that's part of how it is. It's probably because client, single page apps are huge, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and no one was really thinking about. Everyone was really focused on getting away from these, server pages. But now we realize that we actually need the server to do a lot for us as well, So
Yeah.
it's funny
Well,
how
I
things
mean,
come full circle.
like if you deliver a stitched page of HTML, right? Like that's just going to be easier for the client to digest, and it's going to feel a little faster. And so as long as
Yeah.
you're like optimizing for the delivery speed, I think that can be a good thing. Because you gotta download. I think it's particularly when it comes to Meteor apps, it's a particularly big deal because like we've got 4 megs in the JavaScript bundle, right? Like
Yep.
that's ridiculous. And like you have to download those 4 megs before the page could render. And so
Yep.
we've kind of cut that problem out a little bit. Like it's just occurring to me that that's actually happened. And that's maybe why it also feels faster. So even though we're serving the 4 megs via CDN, which should be fast, like you still, unless it's cache, like you still got to download that before you can render the page.
Still sizable amount for sure.
Yeah. And so
Um,
like the
yeah.
server already has that ready to go and it's able to serve that up. And so that helps a lot. And like, I'm looking at the analytics stats and I think, looking at the design, the core functionality of the design actually didn't change that much, right? So like
Yeah.
you still have the main focus of the layout is relevant stories that are like today's top news. And like you click through and read those. And we went from a 76% bounce rate to a 1.3% bounce rate.
That's
That's
solid.
that to me, that has nothing to do with the design. That has everything to do with the page speed, I think. Like
Exactly.
so fast, everyone's more willing to click around and stay on the site a little longer.
Definitely.
They are staying on the site a little longer too. We went from like 1 second average duration to like 142. So that's like a 68% bump right there,
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing. So
So here's the unfortunate thing. There are people like myself that are still on Iron Router and making the transition. And, we have a lot of JavaScript in our apps. Do you have any, like, recommendations on how to deal with that? Because there are going to be people right now who can't server-side render anything because they are legacy code in Iron Router. We get around this at WorkPop. We get around this by saying anything we want to server-side render, like screw Meteor. We're going to use our Express server. We'll just make it happen.
yeah,
And we have a CDN for JavaScript. We'll just make it happen. And then once the user converts, they're going to deal with the fat page load. But that initial one was fast, but the next one is terrible. But that's just a bandage to the bleeding, right?
yeah.
So
Like there's no great answer. So if we're talking like React versus Blaze, like the answer is you can incrementally start to move there. But I think with the router, like there's no super great answer. I feel
yeah,
like that's one of those things you can't partially do one way and partially do another.
yeah,
I guess my recommendation would be just to like the movement from Iron Router to Flow Router isn't bad and doesn't require you to buy into something like React, right?
yep,
And so like that would probably be my recommendation because there are ways to server side render Flow Router, but it's still going to be, it's an effort. It's something that it's you really got to commit to and like debugging and making sure it works correctly.
yeah,
And I saw Kent Dodd posted a tweet the other day, like, given the amount of effort you have to put into getting SSR to work, is it worth the benefit? And I think that there are a lot of people in the JavaScript world that are starting to think no. But I think those people have access to things like tree shaking and code splitting, and that's not something in
yeah,
Medium Lane we have access to. So I think SSR is like a huge win to the Medium.
yeah. It's definitely better than nothing for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah,
Shall we move
so
on?
I feel like when I get the blog post out, part of it was, I wanted to like have a better like performing site for the community to kind of use and rally around, because I don't, like, someone asked the other day in the forums, like, if I don't want to use Meteor, what are my other options? And like, I don't, like, the Meteor team just shut down the thread because they felt like it was going to go negative. And I feel like it's a legitimate question, and I welcome those kinds of questions on Creator, because I think that the community is bigger than just what Meteor is offering. And with that, like, I'm putting together a code of conduct that's going to be on the site now, and I'm going to be opening up a Slack chat that is free for any Creator fans to join, and kind of talk about news stories and ask questions and that kind of thing. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm kind of excited. So I'm gonna try to get all that done maybe tonight or this weekend and see where it goes. But yeah, that's a big thing for me, is just trying to grow up the community, I guess, and make it more inclusive and more welcoming. And I don't know.
Definitely. So speaking about communities and JavaScript in general, Sasha has been wondering, he's been having this question, is like, what is the state of JavaScript right now in terms of front-end frameworks or libraries? And so he sent, it was a couple of weeks ago, he sent me this Google Doc where he was putting together questions that he was going to ask the community. And there was a lot of great questions. So a lot of people chimed in on what should be asked. And he launched the survey. It's called like the State of JavaScript 2016 survey. And he got, over like 3,000 responses. It's probably growing now.
Yeah.
And so that's great. It's great to see that he has a huge community that he can ask. And it wasn't even Meteor people. He just asked people outside of his network, so it wasn't very biased. So that was cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of the traffic came from like Reddit, or like, we announced it in the chat room, so maybe there was slight Meteor bias there in Space Dojo. Yeah. But we've got 300 people. It's not 3,000. So
exactly,
swayed it that much.
And he just pretty much asked like different questions on different frameworks, like if they were satisfied. What are the top? What are the top frameworks? Like, what are you most interested in? And the contenders were React, Angular 2, Ember, vue.js, and I think he threw Backbone in just for a consolation prize. I don't know. There's a lot of people still using Backbone, but it's like legacy. And
there was also a write-in too.
There was what?
There was a write-in, so you could write in.
Like, there's other. Yeah.
But then you could write it in, and so he got. I thought it was interesting. He got a lot of write-ins for Knockout.js.
Oh yeah. I think Microsoft developers are using Knockout, but that's a long time ago. In any case, the interest, he published a cool chart via Chartblocks. It's a great chart like service, I guess, where you can just produce cool charts for your blog posts. So pretty much the interest, obviously React was at the highest, 73% interest.
Mm-hmm.
And then surprisingly, Vue at 48%.
I don't know that I'm surprised by that.
I'm not actually. I'm not. I thought it was going to be Angular too, though.
I've had some conversations with Ben like a while ago where an informal survey. I'm getting a little echo. Turn down your speakers.
Yeah.
Where he was doing like, they were pulling some people in Chicago and like at the JavaScript meetup and stuff. And a lot of the things that were interesting there were like feathers and Vue and stuff like that. And so like, I guess I'm a little less shocked by that myself. I think there are a lot of people that really like and enjoy Vue. It started to follow patterns in React, which is kind of watch happen as well. I was a little surprised by where Ember was at, perhaps. Like, it was barely above Backbone, right?
I know, right?
And it was on par with Angular. So, like, I feel like maybe either the Ember community is not that big, which I don't think is true, or it's just we didn't reach them somehow so far with
Yeah,
this.
maybe they weren't reached.
Yeah.
Or they talk a big game all the time, but maybe no one's interested.
I mean,
So
they have a conference dedicated to it, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's a little surprising that Vue would beat it out by that much.
yeah. Could
Given,
be some sampling bias here, but that's what the interest was. I am actually really surprised about Ember being slow, especially as like big companies like LinkedIn. That's their front end library at LinkedIn, so it's interesting to see. Um,
you know what was actually super interesting is the amount of repeat customers, right? Like he asked a question about who would
mhm.
use a given framework again, and like 92% would use React again,
Yeah,
which is stunning to me, right? Like React, Vue, and Angular all were over 50%, but everyone else was under 50%, which I think
yeah,
is maybe, again, I think Ember, like a question like, is an outlier because we didn't get enough people in or what? But I guess this question would indicate, this question, it wouldn't matter how many people you get in, right? Like
yeah. It's all about
this is about, if you've used it, would you use it again?
yeah,
So these percentages are out of the number of people that have used it. So that's really, really interesting that only
yeah.
40 something percent would use it again. But Vue's right up there, right? Like 86%.
86%. That means they have the best developer experience besides from React, right? React has the best dev experience because I don't know. I genuinely feel very happy building with it, or it feels very natural.
Well,
And then,
I would say there's a cost associated with hiring people, especially in the Valley or in the surrounding area in San Francisco. And
yeah,
like, it's better to, I think it's cheaper to retain people than it is to go find new people to hire.
yeah,
And so,
definitely,
like, making a good developer experience on their internal tooling, I think makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
So,
But it's crazy that Evan Yu solo man project in the beginning has such a good developer experience. And I said this before, but I think he really like just learned what the competition was doing and did what they were not doing.
right.
And so he kind of has a little bit of people like templates, so he has a little bit of templates. People love components, so you got the components and the JSX. People want server-side rendering, he did that.
Yeah.
It's like almost that like when every library got some flack about not having this, he took some notes and he was like, okay, when I build my stuff, it's going to be the exact problem that they're trying to solve. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm not really surprised. He put a lot of care into it.
Well, does this maybe denote, since he's one guy versus a team like React or Facebook's put together with React, like, does this maybe denote in your mind that he's done a good job at community management? Like maybe he's getting
Yeah,
community
he has actually.
participation and shepherding them in a good direction. Uh,
Yep.
that's good for the framework.
Yeah, because right off the bat, he built this very modular. So there are just different like modules that go with Vue that are maintained by companies, other people, dev shops that fell in love with the framework. He has like 10 core contributors in Vue, I think, that are just like in a close knit group that maybe write documentation or whatever. But then you have these companies that are just part of his Patreon campaign that are using it in their product that depend on it. So they're like really invested as well in terms of community and all that. So I think it's just very organic how it's just blown up, especially since a whole framework of Laravel is just adopted that as their front end choice. And that's a lot of that's like the whole PHP community essentially is using Laravel now. That's a huge amount of people that I don't usually talk to in terms of like back end communities, but that's a whole a community that's just adopted it. So that's really cool. I'm really excited about that. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm running some numbers here because I'm kind of curious, like what this ends up looking like as far as contributors go. 17,
yeah,
79 divided by 307. So Meteor's at like 56 commits per contributor on average. And React is at 10. It's like slightly under 10. It's at like 9.5 per contributor, and Vue comes in the middle. It's got 82 contributors for almost 2,000 commits. So, and that comes out to be like 24 commits per contributor. So,
Not bad.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely like not at the React level, but it's certainly seems like it's trending that way. The other
Yeah.
big indicator is like if 24 is the average, you got to look and see like how many people. Yeah, yeah. See, here's the problem: no one falls above that average except for Evan. So
Yeah.
I think it just indicates that he's doing a really, really great job, and
Yeah.
that he's taking onesie twosie commits from a lot of people as well.
Yeah. And that's how it starts, right? Once you start doing those one or two commits, then people feel more comfortable, and then they'll start progressing the library forward. But I
Yeah,
guess at this stage of Vue, he's the architect, so he still has his own plans for it, you know.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Cool.
Anyway, it's a great read and it's interesting, and I think like you know, I would love to see. Like, I'm glad number one he wrote this blog post because I think it links back to the survey, and my hope
Yeah.
is he gained even more. And I suggested to Sasha like he should be going into all the subreddits, like the Ember subreddit, and posting it there, and React subreddit, and like those. I think that's the way to maybe get more of a particular type of person in the door. And if you do that across
Mhm.
the range of subreddits, like hopefully we're maybe a little more inclusive in the what this looks like results wise.
Definitely. Definitely.
So I don't know. I'm super interested. I will say, like, set aside 15, 20 minutes to take this thing, and don't walk away.
Yeah.
Just get it done in one sitting. Because someone said they lost their results because they walked away and came back to it later. He still powered through and got it done a second time, but like, that would be very, very annoying because it's
Yeah. Seriously.
like a 15, 20-minute survey. So,
Well worth the time, though. The
indeed.
whole goal of this is to like, new people are always asking like, what to do, what should I do. If you have data on the satisfaction report of people actually using these products, then you can make your decision a lot easier. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I also think just in general, like there's safety in numbers, right? Like React Router is probably a safer bet than Flow Router at this point, just because there's
Yeah.
like, 10x, 20x number of people using React Router. So
Yeah.
it's good to know this.
Libraries should do NPS scores where you just like, you're running a thing. It's just say, hey, would you like to take the NPS survey? And you just give it a 10 or like 6 or whatever. That would be actually pretty interesting as well. So as you go.
I had an early idea like years ago. I actually had a domain called Plugin Hub, and it was the idea that like you could basically pull in packages from like npm or ruby gems or any of these places, and like try to basically get metric scores off of it, like how active is the library,
Yeah.
how many people are downloading it, like, and that would be one of the things that would be really cool to do, is like ping people and be like, hey, we noticed you're using this, like
Yeah.
give us an idea, like, does this make you happy or sad? Would you recommend it to other people? That would be fun.
It makes me sad. Anyway.
Hey there, just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about something that's coming up in November, Space Camp 2.0. So last year we ran Space Camp 1.0 in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in the mountains. It was a lot of fun. And so this year we decided we wanted to go bigger. And it took some searching, but we found an even bigger place. It has 30 bedrooms, and it's on the coast of North Carolina in Outer Banks. Super, super excited for this. We're going to follow a similar format to last year. So the first day, we're going to have talks, and it's going to be kind of the open camp style of like, everyone just kind of saying, hey, I've got a talk, and we'll pick the best ones, and then we'll all sit down and listen to those. They were great last year. I'm expecting some top-notch ones again this year. We also have like home cooked meals the entire time. My wife is an excellent excellent cook, and she's gonna make all those meals. And I think anyone that went last year would attest to how tasty everything was and how much food there was. And it was amazing. And we plan to replicate that this year. And you know, talks during the day, then in the evenings, beer, board games, a lot of hanging out, talking, watching funny videos, all kinds of stuff. So, um, if board games are your thing, this is definitely the event to come to. I may even try to bring the PS4 or something. We'll see how that works out. The car was pretty packed last year, so I don't know how much space there will be. But if you're interested, it's like November. It's like the first week in November, right after the election. So that weekend, the second day, we'll have a hackathon contest where we'll be building fun things using JavaScript. So if you're a fan of JavaScript, like this is the event you want to be at. So check it out, camp.spacedojo.com. It will be an amazing time. I promise you. See you there. Yeah. So the next story, speaking, I'm
This
happy
one's
about
great.
that, is from our one of our community members, Tom.
Yep.
Oh gosh, Tom Golden,
Goldenberg.
which we met in New York, which
Yep.
is cool. He is co-writing a book with Nicholas Brown, and they're both in New York City, and they're writing a React Native tutorial book, and so it looks interesting to me. I haven't actually seen a copy of it, but one of the fun things I talked to him a little bit after he posted it on Creator
Mhm.
was like, what are you using to show off some of the parts of the book? Like they're talking about user accounts and API integration and mapping. And I was kind of curious what they were using on the back end. And he said they're using something called deployed. Have you heard of deployed?
No,
Um,
but to look it up.
it's deployed.com, no E. Um,
Yeah.
but basically you can
Oh,
build,
nice.
yeah, it's really cool. You can build like REST APIs. And they've got a little DPD WebSocket library. That's
That's
not
cool.
all right. DPD. You got to say it right and not confuse it with
I'm
DP.
familiar here.
um, but yeah, they totally have a front end kind of socket listener that you can utilize so that you can get kind of like the real time updates and stuff if you need it. And they've
That's
got
awesome.
user management, so you can use their little DDP library, DPD library. I just did it. To do handle like the login stuff and all that kind of. So I'm kind of interesting. Like I honestly, I may want to just read the book just to see like what it looks like with them building a library using this deployed. I don't know. Do they have pricing on here? That's the one thing.
Is
Well,
it free right now?
maybe.
Oh no, it's well, they don't have any pricing, but
Yeah.
that's weird. They should put the price. Tom, you should put the price on the website, man.
Well, this isn't Tom's thing.
Oh, it's $25.
Yeah, the book's $25, but I was kind of curious what deployed would cost as a
Oh,
service.
deploy.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Um, so yeah, I think if you're interested in React Native, there's certainly a lot of tutorials out there, right? Like uh,
Definitely.
my good friend Scott Tolinsky has a like 6-hour video course that you can take on React Native. So if video is more your thing, you could go do that at Level Up Tutorials, or you could do this, which is buildreactnative.com. You can get this book right now. It's like 13 chapters. So yeah, like a lot of good options there. And I know someone I used to work with, Spencer, spoke at CreatorConf Mobile Edition, and I think he's working on a book about using React Native and Meteor together. So, you have a lot of good options available.
I love books like this where like you're learning things with a goal.
Hmm.
Like this whole book has a project that you're trying to build, like assemblies, like a meetup clone or something.
Yep.
That's cool. You get to you buy the book, and then at the end of the day, you get some working prototype that you can then use as reference when you build something by yourself.
Yeah, I'm a
The
I'm
best
a
way to learn.
huge super fan of building clones as a way to teach because I think a lot of people. Like that's my Master Meteor class and my Cordova class are both centered around, like Master Meteor, you build a Twitter clone, and then in the Cordova class, you build a Urban Spoon clone, which Urban
Hmm.
Spoon got bought, but if you're not familiar, it's like finding restaurants with ratings and that kind of thing. And I think like people can look at those applications if they're somewhat familiar with them and understand that functionality inherently, and kind of know how it should act, and so they can equate that idea in their mind of like, here's how this feature works, to like, here's how we actually write that code and make it
Yeah.
function, you know. And I think that that's like, it's easy to make that connection and like learn something from it.
Yeah. And then you also realize that a lot of the apps are like the same, you know, in functionality wise. A lot of apps do the same things.
Yeah, there's definitely overlap here and there. Is it time
Oh man, I think it's time. It's time. No, I don't know about that. But our last topic of the day is a Meteor forum post
Hashtag
called
Instagram.
is it time to fork Meteor? And so this is just an interesting topic, as most topics on the Meteor forum get to. That, you know, like this gentleman Ramiz, I think he is just very very unhappy with the way Meteor has progressed. He wanted to replace Mongo with RethinkDB or MySQL, and he was kind of like he was upset that Meteor development has slowed down in comparison to the Apollo development. And I think, and he's thinking what everyone else is thinking is like, if Meteor development group is pushing changes and they're just slowing down the main part of the framework, what happens to all the people that are using it? And, does it make sense for us as, community of Meteor to fork it and take it in a different direction? Now, from what I understand in the past with forking libraries like io.js and node.js, that happened, and, they eventually came back together. So maybe a fork is interesting where a group of people go out and build the features that they want to see, and maybe they'll come back to the main Meteor core at someday in the future. But giving people that option to not use Meteor and use maybe a different design or thinking or train of thought of Meteor is interesting to me. But from me, my perspective, I don't know. I run a engineering team with a big product, and we can't take risks like that. Fork is as risky as the current product.
Well,
so I would not risk my development on that.
You're a medium-sized company, right? That's still taking on, like, my guess is you'll have another round of funding, and like that's
Definitely.
the risk you want to take on when you're still like looking at funding.
Yeah. And when you're trying to build and move fast, you can't be switching your technology every day because people need to learn new technology, and that's a cost of feature development time and bug fixing time and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know. This is interesting. It's not the first time this has come up, right? And we definitely, like, so I'll say, if you're not aware of it, there already is a community fork out there, right? Like Clinical Meteor is a release track, and this is a thing that you can do. You can release a version of Meteor to the package servers, and people can then go install that release. And basically they'll be operating on that version rather than the core version that the Meteor team's putting out. So like Meteor itself actually thought about this and did something interesting when they allow people to put out their own Meteor releases. The thing that I'll say is, like, I number one, I think there's a little bit of BS going on in this post. Like,
definitely.
It just smells to me. Like, anytime someone says like React is good for the consultant community, like I don't buy that. To me, that just tells me you haven't tried React yet. Like, I don't.
You're ignorant.
Like, looking at the state of JavaScript, like I don't think you hit a 92% reuse rate on the survey if it's only good for consultants. And I don't like, it's not necessarily easy to get started with either. So like, I don't,
Yeah.
that's actually bad for consultants. The fact that like there's a little more overhead to get started with it. Like that's one of the reasons like I was so happy with Meteor, is because as a consulting company, like we could absolutely pop out apps like every 6 weeks to clients and move on and do another one. And like, the sales team was concerned with keeping the pipeline full. The problem I have with Meteor now is like looking at how things have gone with like the Crater update. Like Blaze is terrible. Blaze is really, really actually terrible.
This is terrible.
And it's just like you can't compete. You can't compete with React. And there's another thread that's probably worth reading in the forums, and I put a lot of thoughts into. It's like the guy was complaining about React in there again, and like you can't compete. Like there's no way. Even if MDG decided we're gonna compete with React, like there's no way.
There's no way.
Their tooling and their eye on performance and that kind of stuff, like they've already captured a lot of mind share and interest, and like they're already like their performance is already probably 10x better than what Blaze could be, and like they're still pushing that forward because it matters to them. And like Facebook literally makes money off you staying on the site, and if their site gets slow, that costs them dollars, right? So you can go read about how like 1 second of delayed load time on a page costs Amazon an estimated like $1 billion, like almost $2 billion, 1.6 billion. Like this stuff matters to those people, and at some point it's going to matter to you as well. Like we can absolutely see from Crater, like the speed matters. And to say that it doesn't, I think is a little ridiculous. Or to say that it's somehow benefiting someone else, like a consultant, like that doesn't make much sense to me.
No.
I think, Meteor's, I don't know, they made some weird moves, right? But ultimately, if you look at it, at the end of the day, from a dollars perspective for a startup, it makes a ton of sense. Like React will always be better than Blaze. And so why should you spend time something like that when it doesn't make a lot of sense? And it's not integral, right? Like there's plenty of other front end options. If you don't like this one, you can go plug in another one. And like that one's probably still doing better than Blaze would do, because you have this team of initially like 8 people or whatever it's been that were focused on multiple areas and trying to build something. And it turns out like it was a lot for them to care about and work on and build. And they didn't do a great job of separating that out. Like they did try to make Blaze its own living entity, and it didn't work that first time. And they're trying to do it again, but I still think it's not going to take off in the world of, Angular 2 and React and Vue.
Yeah, there's just some of the comments in this thread are just ridiculous. Like, oh, like, thanks for the classic Meteor, I'm going to be building Blaze tools, or, Facebook's only solving Facebook's problem. And,
it turns out Facebook's problem is really actually close to my problem as well.
Same here.
I want people to stay on the pages as long as they can, and then I want them to do something that somehow financially rewards me, right? And that's everyone's building that. If you're not building that, like you're building a nonprofit, but chances are nonprofit still needs money coming in the door. Like I just don't.
Yeah, there's a comment here that says performance doesn't matter. Like
absolutely matters.
Are you a hobbyist, dude? Like okay, this is the problem I've always had with Meteor community. Also, before I get into that, on Twitter, like people say that we're grumpy old people talking about Meteor, but you know what? I'm gonna keep talking about it. But look, Blaze is terrible, okay? And the reason why is, companies like Lookback and Classcraft have defended Blaze when I rant about it, saying that we built all these libraries and stuff. That's cool. But I'll tell you this, from a production standpoint, like you built those libraries and you probably spent a lot of time and effort perfecting those libraries, where something in React, you could have built the same thing in half the time and like less bugs,
Maybe. I mean,
I think definitely, you know.
I'll say this, like I felt like Meteor packages were more polished. But part of that comes from the whole mindset of frameworks versus libraries, right? And so I think in the other thread, the thoughts from a newbie thread, they talked about where was I going with this? I totally lost my train of thought. What was I just saying?
The newbie thread, which had more ridiculous comments in there.
It did. Gosh, now I can't think of what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah. So the integration points. So if you look at like GraphQL and you look at the ecosystem that's springing up around that, like you're getting smart little libraries that are integrating Angular with Apollo and GraphQL, and that's great. But you don't yet have an accounts system that's been built around that, and part of that is like that's out of the purview of GraphQL or Apollo to some degree, right? And like because you're choosing to focus on this one small piece, which is good as a library, like that's what they should be doing, and things are moving in the right direction as a result of that. You end up with like not getting these deeper integrated kind of packages that come along as a framework. And so like that's part of the problem, right? Like maybe the Meteor packages felt better because they were easier to install and integrate and use. But at the same time, like I think that now you're running into a maintenance problem because people are moving on, and like Meteor isn't as open. The package system is its own thing and not an npm thing, and so like other people can't benefit from a lot of these packages, and therefore like people move on and things die off.
Yeah.
And so that to me that's kind of interesting as well. And so I think like people look at GraphQL or Apollo and they go like, oh, this is terrible. It's a terrible idea. Like I just want rethink DB. Why can't we just have rethink DB in the current Meteor ecosystem and make that a thing? Like Horizon went off and did it. Like why can't we just do it in Meteor? And I think to me the realization that you have a backend database driver and you build a front-end database driver like mini Mongo, you start to realize like, crap. Like I've got to now officially support a second database driver on both the front and the back end. The back end is slightly easier to do because you can rely on Node, but at the same time, like you now have to make sure that it serializes correctly to DDP to flow across the wire. And then you have to have a new cache on the front end, or you say, screw it, you get mini Mongo on the front end, right? And you just have this like, sure, you can have rethink DB on the back end, and then you just use Mongo syntax on the front end. And it's like,
it's weird, right?
It's kind of weird. So like it turned out that I think they actually spent time, right, working on rethink DB. They spent time working on Postgres and trying to figure out, is there a smart way we can do this? And they went, yeah, actually we can just do GraphQL and Redux Store and Bob,
that's it. Call it a day.
Yeah. So I feel like it's interesting and they're moving in the right direction. But if you're, building a production app, like it maybe feels a little weird still with Apollo as the option. And it definitely, like, I gotta say, I spent some time outside of the Meteor community, and like it's you get analysis paralysis, and that's the danger of living outside of Meteor, is like figuring out how to wire together all that stuff. And like it's a one-time thing for each app, but it still feels like maybe a little daunting. Like, I got to figure out how to do Webpack, and then I got to figure out how to make like React, talk to GraphQL, and make all these things happen. And you get a lot of that nice stuff from Meteor. And so like I guess I get it, but at the same time, like at some point you're building something for someone that's going to bring value, and like you're gonna run into problems with Meteor in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I mean, from my personal experience now, my team, we're literally building everything in npm modules. just because we cannot deal with the slowness of the build, we can't be bothered to be slowed down by 10-minute build times or whatever. All of our backends now going to microservices, so we're not even touching the Meteor app anymore. And then GraphQL is going to play a big part in that orchestration. And on the front end, thank you Arnoda, we started building everything with Storybook. So all of our front end modules, none of it's going to be in the app. We're all importing everything. And if you want to test and write CSS, you can use Aphrodite for CSS and JS. And then we just write everything in our NPM modules. We test them on Storybook. We have a whole new workflow of how Storybook integrates with everything. Once that's all done, we put it in the app, and then we have to deal with the slow freaking build. But you know what? You save a bunch of time not doing that stuff in the application.
Mm.
But the fact that we have to do all that outside the application should tell you that this is just not working out for a bigger team,
Right.
like
Right.
with a lot of code. So
And
I hope they address those things.
that's a big part of it, right? Because now you get to this point where it's like, oh, we adopted Meteor. It's fast. It meets my needs. This is great. Like, we're going to move quick, or we're going to iterate. We're going to find product market fit. Good for you. Like, that's really, really good. That's what you should be doing as an early stage
Yep.
startup. But surprise, surprise, you hit Series A, Series B, somewhere in there, you got to start paying off that technical debt. And there are other things that you start to care about. And one of those is speed of the team, which
Yep.
working with Blaze in the long run, like large applications, doesn't quite feel right to me using Blaze. Like, I've done some pretty large applications and we've suffered through some rendering performance problems. And like, again, they'll continue to do like little speed increases in the various parts, but it's never going to be like, to me, it's like, if you do A/B testing, you can slowly move your way towards like a 10 or 20% increase, right? And
Yep.
that's what we're doing here. Like, we can make Blaze slightly better. We can make the build tool slightly better here and there. And those are great. But, unless we go back to the drawing board and do a complete redesign, like, that's the only way you're ever going to be able to do like a major speed upgrade, or a major, like, in the A/B testing world, conversion improvement. If you do a redesign, chances are you might be able to capture like 50% increase in sales or something,
Yeah.
so like, we're at this point where we're maintaining a lot of legacy stuff. Like, absolutely, someone like RethinkDB can build Horizons quickly because they're building, that 80% portion, which you can do quickly, and it's going to take them a long time to get that other 20% polish that they need to make it really good.
Definitely.
But they're also not dealing with the legacy at this point. Like, if you just started again today, I think you could rebuild Meteor pretty fast, like the core of it, using pre-built things like Passport and React. But I do think, like, it would take you months, and then there would be like, you would start to slow down just because you've got so much code. Like, it's just a lot of code. It's big.
It's big. It's a big undertaking too.
Yeah.
So.
But they're doing it. I'm curious to see what kind of speed improvements we get with 1.4.2.
I hope they're big. Knowing Ben, they'll be good.
Yeah. So, and frankly, like, they did build some performance testing tools on the build side of things. So, like, and if it's slow for you and you want to help, like, there's a great document out there on the repo somewhere that you can read, and they show you how to run the performance testing, which I know you've done. You posted work pops. So, like, no, I don't. So here's the thing I'll say. I don't think it's time to fork it. I think you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have a bad time. But like, start the discussions, right? And so out of this thread came the discussion that I started. Part of the problem I have is that, I needed accounts Twitter and accounts Facebook, and guess what? Blaze is now on Crater's front end. Do you need Blaze to do anything? No. But part of that JavaScript bundle that's being delivered, and that's a problem. And so, I worked off an issue from the discussion and started talking and just doing some investigative work and posting my findings here and there over the course of like 2 hours, and ended up tracking down what the problem was. And I think we've got a solution that maybe we can fix in Meteor 1.4.2 or 1.5. It seems attainable. So like that, but that's what it's going to take, right? Like Meteor itself, they're not going to fix that. They'll say, yeah, we think it's a problem. Yeah, the solution looks okay. You should go do it. And that's a lot of what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah. You need to be okay with that, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right. Whew, that was ranty. I don't know. I apologize, listeners. That felt a little ranty. I don't know. I have a lot of
just opinions. A little rant.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think you should know where it's going, right? And I think if you listen to this show, you maybe have an idea where Meteor's heading. Like, it shouldn't be a shock to you that when you go look at the commits page, it's all Ben Newman.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a shock to you to see like Abernix or Lauren or someone, Lausab, I don't know how you say it's get handled, but other people like chiming in on the threads that you're in, because they're trying to build that community involvement and governance and that kind of thing. So it's slow, but I think it's I don't know. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
That's all I got this week. So let's try something. If you enjoy this show, we don't advertise. We post it on Crater now with the new design. And you can listen to the podcast on the Crater site. But if you enjoy the show, tweet about it. Let other people know about it. Because that's the only way people find out. You sharing it in some way, and we super appreciate that. And if you have questions, like, we'll have that Slack chat up soon, and Avi and I will be in there. Like, you can post your questions in there, post them on Twitter. Like, we'll be happy to, like, I would love to do a little segment on here where we answer questions for a couple minutes. So absolutely get that stuff posted, like, at Crater Podcast on Twitter. And then, of course, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Meteor Club, and help support the efforts like editing and that kind of thing. Because we have an audio editor, and I've got an assistant that posts this stuff because I'm terrible at remembering all the little things. So I let them handle that. I just rant and then save the file and give it to them.
Yeah.
So
tweet us and stay tuned for that Slack chat. It's going to be great.
Yes, super excited. All right, guys. See you next week.
Yeah.
This video has been a Space Dojo production. You can click the Learn More button to find out more about us at spacedojo.com. Or you can click the subscribe button to get notified about new videos we put out each week. Thanks for watching.